Willis Reed is one of the 10 biggest names in the history of New York sports.
Willis had quickness, range, and real knowledge of how to play the game.
Nothing would ever stand in his way to winning a game.
You dream about playing for a championship. Here I am, I'm at the championship game.
Here comes Willis, and the crowd is going wild.
Yeah, it was a special moment in sports. Like when Babe Ruth hit the 60th home run. Yeah, you felt something. This was something.
The World Championship New York Knicks.
In the late 1960s, early 1970s, the Mets won the World Series, for their first World Series. The Jets won the Super Bowl. There was a lot of interest in New York sports at that time, and now here come the Knicks.
No team really won the hearts of New York like the Knicks.
The Knicks in those days were the talk of the town. I mean, everybody loved them. They weren't superstars, but together they blended beautifully.
They loved Clyde, they loved Bradley, they loved DeBusschere, they loved Dick Barnett, they loved the captain, Willis Reed.
I remember walking down 33rd Street with them, you know, with the gun and everybody. Hey, Willis. You knew you were with somebody.
Willis Reed's teammates and Knicks fans loved him. Opponents and their fans respected him. In 1970, all watched as Reed dominated, winning MVP of the All-Star Game and the regular season with his physical and spirited play.
He played position defense, physical position defense, knowing how to block out, keep his body between the man and the ball in the basket.
And he was closer to 6'8", but he got good position, he was strong. And of course, like all good players, he had a feel for the game. And he knew where the ball was going to go. He got it. And once he got his mitts on it, he could never take it away from him.
To Baylor. And Willis Reed.
Opponents felt Reed's presence on the court. His teammates, they felt that presence and more. Willis Reed was their captain, a title he didn't take lightly.
I always was concerned about the other guys because you need to go and set an example.
Every rookie in all of the 10 years that he played would be his roommate.
Well, one of my favorite roommates, obviously, was Johnny Warren.
You know, going from college to the NBA, it's a big transition. Willis was the kind of guy who sort of, yeah, you can play, Rook. You know, you can play with us. It was almost like, you know, that father image. We felt we could play with anybody because of Willis. Willis has to go up against Chamberlain. You know, he has to go up against Ansel. He has to go up against Kareem.
He was the captain. He was the ultimate big man. He came to your defense if you ever needed it.
By the way, he could fight. I remember one night they were playing L.A., and they were belting around. He put 3 guys down. If they were in the 4, he would have put the 4th guy down. So don't mess with him.
I remember one night, it was about 10 o'clock at night, and Willis says, well, Rook, I got to go to bed. I got to see the big guy tomorrow. The big guy meaning Chamberlain.
My first time ever playing Wilton, I actually scored 32 points against him. I was pretty proud of myself. And then I looked down at his stats, and I held him to 56, you know. So, I mean, I knew he was a load. I knew he was a real load.
Nobody was going to stop Wilt. You simply needed to neutralize Wilt. And Willis did that with offense, quickness, and dogged defense.
Wilt Chamberlain was Goliath, but Willis Reed was no David hoping to get lucky. They battled toe-to-toe many times, none tougher than in the 1970 finals when the Knicks, seeking their first title, faced Chamberlain and the Lakers.
Willis's job was obviously to contain Chamberlain as well as he could, and he did to a certain extent. Chamberlain went crazy a couple of games, and that's why it was tied 2-2.
Game 5. Willis is the most valuable player of the team, and in the second quarter, he makes a move to the basket, falls to the floor, crashing to the floor.
And Willis is hurt as the Lakers come up with the ball. He's still in the backcourt.
When I went down, I thought I was really hurt.
Willis very slow to get up.
You're thinking, uh-oh. Uh-oh, you don't know how severe it is, but you're saying, oh, no.
Nick traded Danny Whalen comes out to take a look.
They haul him off the floor. Our star is gone. What are we going to do now?
That was a major, major blow to the team. But you know, we never lost confidence.
Picked up by Chamberlain in the corner, outside Bradley, one-hander from 20, yes!
Even though Willis was hurt, he was still there.
We're tied at 87.
And we went out against Chamberlain, Baylor, and West and beat the Lakers in the 5th game.
They will remember this no matter what happens, as the night that Reed sat out most of the way and the Knicks came back.
That's probably was the most significant game in that series. Winning Game 5 gave us that home court advantage.
From the bowels of Madison Square Garden, the captain inspired his teammates. But how far would that inspiration carry them? And the Knicks still desperately needed one more win.
The attention immediately went to, how is Willis? Is Willis going to be able to play in the next game, which would be Game 6 in LA?
After Game 5, after the injury, all eyes were on Willis. What do you hear about Willis? How's he walking? Is he going to play? You know, the whole thing. We were monitoring him almost by the minute.
He was like walking around the room, you know, and he jumps. He said, "Hey, Rook, I feel pretty good, Rook." He reached and he touched the ceiling, and he came back down and he put weight on that leg, and he just fell on the bed. So I said, "No, Cap, you can't go tonight. You can't go tonight. Won't you rest up?" And he didn't play.
Willis Reed is out.
That drive, that desire, that will to win came from Willis's childhood.
I was born actually on my grandfather's farm in a little town called Hico, H-I-C-O, Louisiana.
When he was very young, they moved to the big town of Bernice, and he once told me Hico had no stoplights. Bernice had 2 stoplights in town.
I learned hard work. I mean, because both my parents worked, so I worked. My mom was a very good cotton picker. She could pick up to 300 pounds. I think the most I ever picked was like 210 pounds.
Willis said, you know, the weather sometimes, the temperature got up to 120 degrees. But I made up my mind when I picked that cotton that I was going to be the best cotton picker there ever was in the history of cotton picking.
I went from 8th grade being 6'2" and growing 3 inches, and by September, I went back to school 6'5", 13 years old, wearing a size 13 shoe. So I needed to work to make some extra money because my clothes became very expensive. I actually worked on the same job with my dad, making 75 cents an hour, and I remember after the summer was over, my dad said, "Well, you know, I know you're thinking about going to college, but I mean, you don't want to go to college. You can stay here and work with Mr. Lindsay." I told Dad, I said, "I'm going to college."
Because of his height, obviously, he gravitated to basketball.
I was clumsy. I mean, I used to walk down the street and just fall down. I mean, you know, you couldn't control your body.
Where many might get discouraged and quit, Willis Reed became determined, a trait his mother instilled in him.
My mom is always saying, "Well, who won?" "We lost." I go, "Well, who won?" "We lost." She said, "I should have known it before I even asked." I mean, that was like really a shock. I said, you know, I'm gonna prove to my mom I'm gonna get to be a better basketball player and we're gonna win some games.
Eventually, Reed was noticed by such college powerhouses as Nebraska, Loyola Chicago, and Wisconsin. But instead, he decided to stay close to home and attend Grambling State.
I liked the way Grambling played. Grambling played running basketball. They're big men, blocked shots, they ran, they dunked the basketball. No, I had a good career. I think we lost 17, 18, 19 games in my whole 4 years at Grambling. So, I mean, we were a very good basketball team.
Reed had started to make a name for himself and was considered a top pick in the 1964 draft.
The Knicks drafted him, but on the second round, which was a surprise.
I mean, I'm mad. I'm upset. I'm really upset that I didn't get drafted first round. I thought I was good enough to be a first-round pick.
They didn't have a good book on him, but they soon found out.
I came with a chip on my shoulder. You get up every day, you have something to prove to everybody.
And he gave New York a shot in the arm.
With that chip on his shoulder, Reed went on to average close to 20 points and 14 rebounds per game, winning Rookie of the Year. He was part of the Knicks family now, and he gave everything. Game in and game out all the way up through the 1970 finals.
Family is most important to Willis. So therefore, when the Knicks are getting ready to win a championship, the family aspect just went from Bernice, Louisiana to Madison Square Garden, where Willis, as captain of the Knicks, tried to make everybody a family.
Reed was not with his family in Game 6 of the 1970 finals, and an unchecked Wilt Chamberlain took control in a convincing victory to force a Game 7. It was now winner take all at Madison Square Garden. Captain or no captain. May 8th, 1970. All day, it seemed like there was only one question on every New Yorker's mind. Would the captain, their captain, Willis Reed, play that night?
I went to the Garden early that day. One point in the afternoon, I went out on the floor and shot the basketball, but I could realize that the thing I could do, I could drag the leg, but I couldn't pick the leg up. I made up my mind then, I thought I was gonna try.
The question is, will Willis Reed play tonight? There is tremendous doubt right now.
When Willis came into the office prior to Game 7, he had 2 sneakers from Game 5. He took the sneakers and threw them in a garbage can, and he said, these sneakers were of no help to me in that last game.
The Lakers continue their warm-ups 2 hour right. The Knickerbockers warming up 2 hour left.
We had no idea, man, that he would play or not.
And the crowd is very quiet as they wonder whether Willis will be in the lineup.
I kept going back into the locker room to see if Willis really was going to play. Each time I went back onto the court, Wilt Chamberlain was coming over and saying, is Willis going to play? And I said, well, I don't know if Willis is going to play.
Both the Knicks and Lakers looking over toward the entranceway from the Knicks dressing room.
I saw Willis getting a needle about this size, at which point I knew definitely he was going to play.
Here comes Willis, and the crowd is going wild.
I walk out on the court, you know, I'm coming through the tunnel, and I get a standing ovation from the fans, and I'm thinking, you know, this is a heck of a predicament to be in.
And to come out there in that crowd, you know, wounded, as they say, wounded, but he wasn't dead.
The Lakers have stopped, and they're just watching Willis go through his warm-ups.
When he comes out and this big roar goes up, you know, and we're looking around too, like the Lakers, like, what is going on? And we see Willis come out.
When I went out on the court, I needed to make sure I did not show any sign of weakness.
I think I saw watery eyes in every member of that team.
The electricity was unbelievable. It's like, we could win this game.
It was electric. You could just feel it.
Yeah, it was a special moment in sports. This was something.
Chamberlain gets control. Willis Reed did not try.
Here I am trying to play the greatest offensive player to ever play center in the NBA. Wilt Chamberlain on one leg. This is not gonna work. You know? But gentlemen, you gotta try. I just couldn't flex the leg. I had to run and drag the leg. If I did that, I was okay.
Court to Frazier, got it by West, left side of the lane, outside Reed, jumps from 20, yes!
Takes his first shot and makes it.
BARNETT to Reed on the forecourt, from 20, jumps, yes! Willis has hit on his first 2.
Willis put his whole career on the line for the team. The most inspired was WALT FRAZIER.
Garrett loses to Frazier.
One thing that is often overlooked is that Clyde Frazier had the game of his life. I mean, he was the star of that game.
We weren't running on the floor. We were like running on air. They were so buoyant after that, you know, like, yeah, man, this is it.
Part of us did not want to let Willis Reed down.
Out on its feet, Roy. Frazier, top of the key. Outside to Busher. In the corner, Frazier. He drives to Barnett for a jump. Yes! The Knicks are hugging each other on the bench. That is it! The New York Knickerbockers have won the 1969-70 World Championship of Basketball. They are being mobbed as they head to the dressing room. The New York Knicks are the world champions in a devastating rout.
I still get inspiration now when I think about it. It's very moving for me.
That was for everybody. I mean, this was something that we all wanted.
May 8th, 1970 was the day when Willis Reed went from all-star to legend.
He wins Most Valuable Player of the season, Most Valuable Player of the All-Star game, Most Valuable Player of the Championship Series. It all came together for him in that year, and that's why he became, I think, one of the 10 greatest stars in the history of New York sports. If I say to you, the Willis Reed game, you'll know exactly what I mean.
It looked like it was a script. Okay, you come out late, you know, and we'll give you the first 2 shots and we'll win a championship. You know, that'd be it, you know.
It has become mythical. The Garden only holds 20,000 people. You probably had 500,000 saying that they were at that game that night.
Willis Reed led the Knicks to a second title in 1973, and again was named MVP of the finals. But little did he know that this would be his last full season.
We were out playing the Lakers, and I was running down the floor, and I felt something snap in my right knee, and that was the beginning of the end of my career. And in the spring, we made the playoffs, and I couldn't do it, and the doctor said, "You're gonna have to have surgery again." And I just said, "There's no reason for you to go out and abuse your body any more than you've already done." And that was it.
I think Willis loved the game so much. And it's always very difficult when you're giving your whole life to something to stop it. But he did try to give the best he can with the limited amount of movement he could have.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to pay tribute to a man whose type comes our way only once in a lifetime.
Willis Reed retired in 1974 and became the first Knick to have his number hang from the rafters.
On behalf of the New York Knicks, management, and the players, we present to you this plaque. It's a great honor. Personally, I'm sure I can speak for you and my other teammates that played with you and say that we've all missed you. We've never been the same since you left.
To be able to walk in Madison Square Garden for the rest of your life and see number 19 there with 22 and with 10 and all the other numbers, it's a great thing. I said that night, you know, to me, this is the most important award I ever had.
In 1977, the Knicks gave their former captain a new leadership role as head coach. He led them to the playoffs, but just 14 games into his second season, management wanted a change, and Willis Reed was fired.
I thought I did a good job, but you know, that's life. You move on. I mean, you know, it broke my heart. But, because, you know, I mean, I thought that we were on the right track.
To his credit, and I think this tells a lot about the man, when he got fired by the Knicks and he still wanted to have a career as a coach, he went to St. John's and became an assistant coach to Lou Carnesecca.
Comes out and becomes a volunteer coach because as a volunteer coach, we couldn't even pay his coffee. He would come every day to practice, work with our fellas for zero. That's why people love him so much. He didn't have to wear a big hat. He knew how to wear that.
Over the years, Reed's love of the game kept him in basketball, either on the sidelines coaching or in the front office. But it's his indomitable will and spirit that puts Willis Reed alongside the greats in the annals of NBA history.
I'm an observer of life. I'm an observer of the great players who played before me. And to know that you were one of them, and you were at one point one of the best in the league, an all-star, a champion, you know, it's something that, you know, you'll always be there.
I remember looking at the photograph that I took of Willis Reed walking on the court. David Stern was with me, and he looked at the picture and he said that was the most dramatic moment in playoff history.
Willis set the tone on the team. He played the role of captain.
And he exemplifies courage, team spirit, love for the game, and love for your team.
You know, a lot of guys play good, but do you respect them? So we had a supreme respect for Willis. That's what it was. He was that type of guy.
I think if he never played it, if he never bounced the ball, he'd still be the great person he is. The guy you want to be with. You want to be with Willis.